How was your week?
It was fine. I don't really remember what I did. How was yours?
Normal, I guess. Mangoes were on sale at the grocery store.
Canadian Mist was on sale too. Do you go to the Vons across from the car wash?
That's the one I go to. I've seen you there. I saw you there last week.
That's right.
What's Canadian Mist?
It's shitty whiskey. It's Canadian. But that's not why it's shitty. I don't think that's why, anyway. I have good feelings about Canadians, generally.
How would you feel if I died?
I don't know.
Do you think you'd be sad?
I don't know how I'd feel.
Really?
This kind of thing is difficult for me.
You don't know how you'd feel if I died.
I don't know how to mourn, Sarah.
Michelle. My name is Michelle.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
You really don't have any idea how you'd feel if I died.
I don't know how to behave when those things happen.
You mean when people die?
Yes.
You're making this about you, and your inability to exist in society without cues and filters. I'm curious to know how you'd react if I was dead.
I don't know what I would do, Sarah.
Michelle. My name is Michelle.
Forgive me. I don't know what I would do.
Would you cry?
Maybe. People cry. Should I cry?
We're close, aren't we?
Maybe. I think. Have we had sex?
I have.
I mean with each other.
I don't remember.
Well then. I hope not.
You're being very casual about my death.
You said, what if? You said, what if I died? You haven't died yet, Sir Michelle.
Last night I was sitting in my apartment, in the living room, and the neighbors were arguing about something, and I could hear it through the wall. And I had eaten half of my dinner, and the Alfredo sauce was congealing on the plate. I stared at the Alfredo as it hardened, and I listened to the neighbors yelling. And I looked at the wall that I could hear the neighbors through, and I felt a heaviness. I wanted to cry, but I felt that if I cried, my tear ducts would release not just tears, but the stuff that was keeping my brain and my heart attached to each other. I was afraid that crying would loosen a connection between my reason and my being. That doesn't make sense when I say it out loud. I was afraid that if I cried, I would lose my mind. I didn't want to collapse on the floor of my apartment and stop being myself, while the neighbors argued on the other side of the wall. And who would find me? It would be them. They would hear the sound of my reason as it escaped my body, the squished, slapping sound. They would hear the scraping on the floor and the wordless screaming of my dying mind. I would be on the floor of my apartment, collapsed, beshitted, bloody, screaming. They would find me. These tweakers, my neighbors. They would be the ones to find my husk of a body. And they wouldn't know what to do. They would stand there, looking in my window. Or maybe they'd be standing in my living room. I wasn't sure if I'd locked my door or not. They'd be there with their wide darkened eyes. And their wide black tooth mouths. And they wouldn't know what to do. They'd probably whisper to each other that they were scared. They'd wonder if they should call 911. I would be on the floor, blood trickling from my mouth and nose. My hands would be curled into awkward fists. Fists useless for fighting. And my neighbors would be high, hearts still racing from all the meth and the arguing, and the sex. And they would let me turn into a hollow mindless zombie of a body, and I mean zombie in the voodoo sense. I'd be under someone else's control. I'd walk the streets with no will of my own. I'd be a slave to the desires of others. There would be life. And it would be dried on my lips, in my nostrils, under my fingernails. And I wouldn't be allowed to partake of it. I wouldn't be allowed to wet those dried crusty bits with my own lifeless saliva and reactivate the meaning of my existence. And then I realized, as I looked at the Alfredo sauce hardening on my plate, that I am beholden to the will of others anyway. That my life is not my own, but a series of pleasing and placating events that I fool myself into believing I initiate. I pushed the crusted sauce around with my fork, and I knew that I was always ready at the service of others. I listened to the violence of my neighbors screaming, and I knew that my life was not mine to control, but that it was controlled by those who don't love me, don't know me, don't understand me, don't care about me. So I let myself cry.